Dear friend, let's discover more of who we are together. Love, Haley and Amanda.
Well, welcome back to another episode of Dear Friend Podcast. Still love the name, can't get over it.
Still love it. You're my dear friend.
And today we are doing a great interview with some of our dear friends. Yes. Truly, like I've been knowing them because I worked with Danielle over 10 years ago now, which is insane. So they've been a part of our lives and they're wonderful people, but they're doing amazing work. Amazing work. They've had 16 years of experience in providing solutions such as education, scholarships, sustainable food sources, and clean water to underserved communities around the world. So they're really into helping others, giving, and like it's their whole life. They're very, it's kind of Mother Teresa-y.
I know, and it kind of brought them together, Danielle and Javier, and they have a daughter named Sage, who we adore, and
she shows up in the interview.
And we want to give a little shout out to Sage because the day this podcast comes out, it is her birthday.
This is your birthday.
Happy birthday to you,
Sage.
And we're out. Nice.
We love you, Sage. You're an angel, and we're so glad that we got to see you in this interview. And she pops in. You guys are gonna love this interview.
The whole story, how resilient they are through all of the things they've been through. Also, if you are someone who is drawn towards acts of service or even, volunteer work and even turning volunteer work into your full-time work, this episode is for you. They've made tons of sacrifices to make their calling come true and continue. It's so inspirational.
Also, if you're not trying to make it your full-time thing, but you want to include service into your life, this will inspire you. This will so inspire you because these people are just special. You're going to love their story. So we're going to jump into our interview with the Mendozas.
And they are calling us from Honduras.
That's right. They are living there in Honduras.
In La Sierra.
So we Zoom called them in Honduras, and we hope you guys enjoy.
Who do y'all consider to be your dear friends?
No, just one.
Just one.
We were not prepared for that question.
Yeah.
There's two.
We don't have multiple dear friends. It's dear friend.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you think that's how
dear?
this works, I'm kidding.
Oh my gosh. All right, Javi, take it
No,
away.
you're first.
Oh, goodness. Okay, I would say, who is my dear friend? Is it too weird just to say it's my husband?
No, that's sweet.
It's very sweet. But now he's going to feel obligated.
No, he doesn't have to, but it's true because I'm the type of person that could probably live my whole life without a friend. I know that sounds terrible, but I picked one and then I just sunk everything into that. So
I kind of did the same thing with this one.
Yeah, exactly. So I feel like I have a lot of friends and they mean a lot to me, but I feel like he's my true dear friend.
Oh,
Lifelong, love long. So.
That's sweet. Javi, what do you got to say?
Well, there was this person that I met many years ago, and my person is also Danielle. And like she said, of course, this is like
just rolling her eyes. Sitting there and rolling her eyes.
these
this
cheese
is something
balls.
that we always joke about because, of
Yes.
course, we're super comfortable with each other now. But even in the very beginning, it was like, this is just meant to be.
Yeah.
So I remember even on our very, very, very first date that we ever even went anywhere, got coffee, just like, okay, where is this, going? On the way, she says, I want to know where this is going because I'm not just going to date. I'm not doing this for any kind of, particular reason. I need to know if there's a goal in mind. Is there something coming on?
So Danielle.
So on the very first, I almost drove off the road. Like I was like, this is a very direct person.
Yes.
And to me, of course, my answer was like, yeah, this is going somewhere for sure. So if it's up to me, then we're for sure together. So
Yeah, it seems crazy now.
over the years, it's developed into empowering and working together. And, because that's the dynamic that a lot of people don't understand, is that from day one, in one form or fashion, we've worked together, we've lived together, we've, are raising our family together. Like everything is together. There was no compartmentalizing, well, you do this work and I do this work. And even when we had very separate jobs, it was always like a teamwork dynamic. It was always like, okay, let's help each other get to the next level, and let's help each other get to another promotion or another raise or something like that. So now we bring that into the organization that we're building now, which is like, that's great. Like, how could you find someone that is your friend, is your spouse, is, the perfect mother to our kid? Then to me, it's like that it fits all the boxes. And then now we get to work together. So to me, I'm like, that's great. No problem. Like, I don't have to worry about anything else forever.
And from an outsider looking in, I would say that is very evident. Like even when y'all have worked separate jobs or whatever, you are very much a team in everything that you're doing, even from an outsider's perspective, which this is a perfect transition because we want you guys to tell us your story, like every detail, what you wore to the first day of kindergarten. No, like y'all's story. What we want to hear, give us the lowdown.
Well, our story together began many moons ago, but when we really fell in love was on a trip to Louisiana after Hurricane Katrina had hit. So the hurricane had hit, many people had lost their homes and they were displaced, and it was just a horrible situation. And at the time we were attending 2 separate churches, and his church was leading a team to go and do relief aid. And they contacted my dad, who was a pastor, and said, hey, would your church want to be involved with this? We know that this is the type of stuff you guys do as well. And so my dad said yes immediately. Well, he knew that I already kind of had a crush on him, but he didn't want that to influence my decision on if I was going to go on the trip or not. So my dad invited me on the trip, but he didn't tell me that it had anything to do with Javier or the church he was attending. So that was kind of funny. And so I, of course, wanted to go. I've been doing mission trips since I was 12. So my first trip was to Mexico, and that's when my eyes were like really open to, just a different way of living and a different culture, and really the abundance that we have in the United States and how that's not the same everywhere. And even in the United States, there's different aspects of that, of, poverty and wealth, but I was never exposed to anything other than wealth, really. Until my trip to Mexico. And so I had already had that seed planted. And so since that moment on, I said yes to any opportunity that involved any type of humanitarian work or mission work. I was like, yes, sign me up. I want to be there. And so, of course, on that trip, we were working alongside each other. And it was kind of funny because you guys have a history with growing up in the church and those dynamics. So, a lot of times they like to separate like the men and the women. It's almost like they think something crazy is going to happen if they work together.
Yeah.
And so
they're worried for us.
Oh yeah, they're terrified, right?
Yeah, that you may have a different mission.
Exactly. So it was not any different in that circumstance. So they said the men are going to go and they're going to rebuild homes, and they're going to remove the debris, and they're going to cut down the trees, and they're going to be outside doing all the manly work, and then, quote unquote manly work. And then the women are going to stay inside in this facility that has no windows, this gym, and you're going to pass out canned food and bottled water all day. And I was like, that doesn't sound appealing to me at all. Like, I am not an inmate. Like, I want to be outside. I did not come all this way to be stuck in a building with no windows. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I asked my dad, I said, please let me go with you. Like, I want to do all of that. I want to be outside. I'm strong. Like, I can do anything. So please don't leave me stuck here with all these women.
Very Danielle. Very Danielle.
I know, right? I know. So of course he was perturbed and just like, oh my God, because it's that same reaction. Like, of course you're going to have to go against the grain of what everyone is doing and say you want to do something different. And we've been invited here, and now you're going to present this issue. So I'm like, please just let me go. So he ended up coming to the conclusion that it would be okay as long as I wore my brother's clothes. So he didn't want me to look feminine in any way. I guess he didn't want me to be a distraction or whatever, weird church culture. So I had to wear a very baggy shirt and very long, baggy boy basketball shorts. So I was like, great, wonderful. I don't care what I'm wearing. I just want to be outside. And
Javi was like, I didn't know I was attracted to men until that.
Right.
Somehow I still knew what she was working with. So there was a little bit of intrigue still.
Right. So we got to serve side by side, day in, day out, doing really hard manual labor. But I think that's when our respect for each other really developed, like just admiration and respect, and like, wow, we kind of have the same goals because we were the youngest people there. Everyone else was, much older than us. Yeah. And it wasn't a youth trip, it was just an adult trip, and we just happened to be the youngest ones there. So we kind of realized in that moment, I think, that our paths were gonna align. And so from that moment on, it's basically been just, the rest has been history. We connected during that time on that trip, and then our entire relationship has gone in that direction of the mission work and humanitarian aid and things like that. So, but that was really kind of the catalyst for everything.
And I guess, what was the moment that y'all knew the missions work, or, I guess acts of service, this life of service that you guys have leaned into? What was the moment where you knew it wasn't just something that you were going to do sometimes or
like on top of your career? Because I think a lot of people see service and acts of service as something kind of that's like icing on the cake.
Right.
Yeah.
When did y'all decide like this is what we're actually going to do all the time and be about and make it our life?
Yeah, I think that for me, it did start to align, and some of the vision kind of became more clear on that service trip that we took to New Orleans after the hurricanes. And so to me, it was starting to align a little bit already. I was serving in the church that I was going to, teaching the 5th and 6th graders on Sunday morning and helping set up and tear down in those days. And, we're still connected to that church. They're a very big part of what we do now still, 16 years later. So it was more like a decision after a decision after a decision, taking one step and then another step. And I remember asking for like my 5th week off from my work. And they kind of looked at me like I went into the office and I said, listen, there's something that has come up. About the work that, of course, that we do, like you said, as kind of the icing and sort of like any chance we had, any opportunity that we could take, we were doing it. Yeah. And I remember them looking back at me and saying like, well, I think you have to make a decision. I think it looks like this is taking more of your time, which he meant more of my time.
Yeah.
And it was kind of one of those eye-opening sort of like revelations where it's like, okay, yes, I want to do this. I need to do this. It was compelling me. I was being compelled to want to do this more. Yeah. And so from that moment on, we started making decisions about what jobs to take that offered flexibility, or what, where to live, where, hey, we could put just the smallest amount of money towards this living space because everything else that we have in excess of that is going into this. Yeah. Like, we're going to build this thing. If it's just the two of us, or, with our partners, Travis and Gina, it's just 2 families. It was just 2 couples to start out this work. But every decision and every step that we took seemed to sort of like lean towards, this is like, it's a tipping point. There's something that at some moment we're going to just push over and the cascade's going to happen. And so I remember one time, it just one decision after another, but it was like the work was pulling us in one direction. This more noble cause and more noble work was definitely pulling us on the other direction. And so it was very difficult to say, okay, and we've done it multiple times now through different careers, but it's like, okay, we're saying no to that. Yeah. And so then bosses and people, like, and especially with her career, it was very like competitive, and like people were saying like, now's the time, you're in prime, sort of like time of just growing and climbing the ladder. And for us to say no to those things is still very misunderstood by a lot of people, because it wasn't something that we were like, well, that's bad, or that's not good enough, or it's just totally like, this is just something we're called to, we're compelled to go and do. And we were trying to find vacation time and, trying to save up, and all of our savings have gone into this at certain points of our life. And so it was just like a no holds barred, like, we're doing this thing. And so I remember it was more, instead of just like one catalytic moment, it was more like a decision here and a decision there. And now that we can look back at it, it's like, man, all of those little zigs and zags were taking us to this life where it's like, okay, now we're just all in.
Yeah.
And what was I know this wasn't something that we had a question for, but now that we're talking about this, what was it about starting Connect Global that compelled you instead of joining like an already established organization? Was it something that you saw that was lacking in other organizations, or what was it about starting it with your partners, Travis and Gina?
Well, we had, like I said, we had done a lot of service trips before we started Connect Global, separately and together. But there was one particular trip that we were on, and it was before we were married, and it was here in Honduras where we were visiting and serving. And I remember feeling at the end of the trip like I didn't really do the people justice. I felt like what we did and what our intentions were pure, but that really at the end of the day, they're still going to be hungry, and I'm still going to go back to Starbucks when I land, when I hit DFW airport. And that just made me feel really bad. And
that gives me goosebumps, actually, Danielle. It's like, oh, I've been in situations like that where the intention is so good, but you're not doing real change.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And every single person that was on that trip were and are great people. Oh, yeah. And I would never question their intentions. I certainly didn't question our intentions. But it was that feeling of like, oh, okay, like it served a purpose for me, but that's not the point of what these trips are supposed to be. It's supposed to serve a purpose for someone else. So I got to experience a new culture, and I got to meet new people, and I got to have fun and, make a friend or whatever for 7 days. But what did I impart or leave with them, And so to me, that became very crucial in those conversations. And at one point I even told him on that trip, I said, we're never going to be a part of something like this again. And he was like, oh dear, like why? And I was like, well, I feel like they gave more to us than we gave to them. And I'm not okay with that. And, they're still literally children that had swollen bellies are still going to be hungry. And what did we do? I mean, we hugged them, we played with them, we prayed for them, we did things like that. We fed them the week we were there, but it's like,
what about next week?
Exactly. And so it was just a conversation that we had of, honestly, I was like, I just can't be a part of something like that again. It's not okay. And then he's saying, okay, well, like, calm down. Let's think about this for a minute. Like, maybe we could think of something that's super sustainable and actually makes a lasting impact, whether we're there every day or not. And I'm like, okay, that I could get behind. And so he did the research and found a company in Florida called Morningstar Fishermen, and they train people to do aquaponic systems. So that's when we were able to go learn and be certified to make these fish farms. And create them in areas where they're lacking protein and vegetation, and things like that. And so that was really what got us to get excited about forming our own organization. Was, okay, we have all these people that have really good intentions that surround us and have even encouraged us and like propelled us into this type of life. But, what is the sustainability behind it, and where does it leave the people that we met when we go away? And so that was really the catalyst for Connect Global. And it started with something as basic as a fish farm. So.
Yeah. And I would add in too, because kind of what you're setting up for is like, okay, well, we could have done a lot of things. We could have even gotten a job with other charities that were already established and already growing. But I think for us, when we looked around with the connections that we had and the relationships that we had, by and large, it was just sort of like nobody was doing what we felt we needed to do.
Yeah.
We found a couple of little small pockets here and there of people who truly understood the benefit and some of the things that we were talking about. But a lot of times we would get met with blank stares and just sort of like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, wow, that seems interesting. Like, I don't know what that means, to go and build sustainable food systems and all these different things. And clean water, Charity Water, who we may all be familiar with, an enormous, great charity, beautiful work that they're doing. I think that was just kind of coming into the psyche of most people. I mean, that's when, they were founding that.
Yeah.
And so really the big idea of just like, hey, going somewhere and making something sustainable, something that will change, not just for this week, not just for a couple of weeks, but it'll change the course of someone's life for a long time.
Right.
It just really was sort of being transformed at that moment. And so for us, we looked around and we said, okay, when we're explaining it to people, we had a lot of early adopters. I mean, some people were just getting it and they were like, cool, if you guys are doing it, I trust you. I think it's great. Here's a gift, or here's a donation, or here's some seed money to do that. But for us, it was really about bootstrapping. And it was just like, we're entrepreneurial in our mind already. So it's like, okay, I can turn, $1 out of 15 cents. And we're going to do that 100,000 times. Like, I don't care if you give me $1 or $10 or $100,000 gift. I'm going to make that stretch as far and as fast as I can. And so it was just all about speed at that moment. It was like, we're a small gathering, so we could be very nimble. Those first few days of trying out different prototypes and different things that we were working on didn't work. Some things failed and some things we didn't plan for, so it didn't work out as well. We've learned a lot over 15 years, but because we were small and agile at that moment, we could scrap an idea very quickly and then say, okay, well, that didn't really work. Let's find out more. Let's learn more. Let's bring in some people that can kind of understand and help us grow this thing together. And so as we were growing, that's when we started to realize this was the right idea, because, it's very hard to change direction on a big ship. If it would have been that we just attached ourselves to another organization, maybe eventually we could have gotten the leeway to do what we're doing now. But when we were small and just growing and just like going out and doing it, we had the ability to say and take on trips and say no to things that maybe we wouldn't have had the opportunity to do if we were just aligning with someone else's mission and their vision.
It's so crazy hearing you guys talk and seeing your faces and your passion and stuff. It reminds me of this quote we talk about a lot. It's by Friedrich Buechner, and it's that he says your calling is where the world's great need meets your great gladness.
Yes.
And I just like see that beaming out of you guys, and that you've even said the word calling a few times, like we're just called to do this. And it's like, what is that? That's calling us, but it's that you saw a need that wasn't being met. And then that's where your great gladness comes and meets it. But you guys working together, it's like you have the same why and alignment, but you guys are very different people. And I think
Thank you for noticing.
Well, and you just have like these different strengths, and like even in that storytelling, Danielle. Okay, I just have to say, Danielle, how I even met you, how I even know you and Javi is we worked together. And I was telling, whenever we were preparing for this interview, I was telling Kaylee, and she was agreeing with me, that you are just like so good at boundaries with people, and you were so direct but kind. And I just remember seeing you, and you were not that much older than me. I think we're like a year or so apart. And I was like, this is a boss woman in here. What am I doing with my life? This girl is in charge. And but not in a aggressive, mean way. It's like a very good balance.
It really is.
And so like even in that story you were just saying, where you're like, we're not doing that again.
Javi's like, well, what do you want from Starbucks?
Exactly.
I was like, well, we're kind of down a path here, honey. There's not a real.
I'm just curious, like, how do you think each other's strengths help you guys in your success and accomplish things with Connect Global?
Well, we are very different, like you guys said, but it has really worked to our benefit for sure, because we do have different strengths. I think that one of the strongest attributes that we have as a family and as a couple is that Javi has never been, he's never been embarrassed or like intimidated by the fact that I'm a strong personality or that I'm a strong woman. He's actually always very much encouraged that and has given me all empowerment to just be who I am. So he's never tried to like diminish my voice or diminish my presence or to, you know, say, oh, well, you know, you think that, but here's how it really is. He's never tried to do that. There's things that he will like, I will say, I think this, and he'll be like, I couldn't disagree more. And, you know, we'll have conversations. So it's not like he just thinks everything I say is right, but he always takes into account what I'm saying and just literally seeks to understand or tries to figure out why I'm coming up with that conclusion or where it would come from. And the fact is, like, he's played a very significant role in the success of our personal lives and also professionally with Connect Global. But I was, like he was saying before, I was on a career path that it was just like every corner was another promotion. It was like, I would call him one day and say, well, now they promoted me to this and they're going to pay me this much. And then be like 3 weeks later, well, now I'm this and they're going to pay me. And he was like, I remember one day he was like, holy crap, babe, like on the phone. But it never intimidated him. It never made him feel insecure or less than. And when all of that was happening and I was having to dedicate so much of my time to that career, which truly what he knew is that I was doing that so Connect Global could continue. So I think that my success with my real estate career truly came because of my passion for missions. Because I was like, I will do anything to make sure that I don't have to pull him away from that, because he is exactly the person that we need running this ship. And I do not want to have a distraction or something that pulls him away from that to just get.
I love it.
I will cry. And like, people, are you listening to this? Like,
Partnership.
Yes, partnership. Like where you guys have a, you know, maybe a single goal together, but like you're willing to sacrifice to make sure that each other is getting to the ultimate goal. And that's really beautiful.
And that it looks like different things. Like you pursuing your passion doesn't always look like quitting my job immediately, both of us, and moving to another country right away. Sometimes it's just like, I'm asking for a lot of vacation and you put a little rock in the, I'm picturing like two scales, like tipping, and you're just like each putting in things to tip it. And sometimes
I'm in the real estate industry now. Gonna help you to do this. Here's the balancing of the scale. I see that too. That's beautiful.
And he always was very intentional to make sure I was included in the conversations that I wasn't in, that I couldn't be a part of, because I was playing a role for our family for this mission. And so he always did such a great job of trying to make people understand that I was very much a part of what Connect Global was behind the scenes and at the, you know, the dinners and fundraisers and the day-to-day and all of those things. Even when I couldn't be present and I couldn't be as visible, he was always very intentional to make sure people knew that this was a partnership and we were building it together. And he did a lot of things that weren't probably fun or comfortable or even like the norms in society of like the male role. There was a lot of nights where, I mean, I never cook. Let's just say what it is. I don't cook.
and hubby's really grill master.
Yeah, well, he's grill master. He's take-home chef. He's like Michelin star man, like all of the things. And so it's like he would cook for us every night. So I have this demanding job and I'm pouring my, you know, soul into it because my soul is really for this. And so I'm giving every effort I have to that. And I come home and have like the best food ever. And it's like, I feel bad for everyone else on the planet because they don't have that, you know, so it's just, he was never afraid to just lean into that as well. You know, he was homeschooling Sage for several years while I was working that career, and he and her would travel here to Honduras without me. And
this leads us into the next part of this interview that we've got to spend some time on, because this is very unique about your family. And also I think it could be really inspirational to other people. And I just think it's an interesting perspective that you guys have a daughter, Sage. Hi, Sage. She's sitting right there, who we love. And I've known her since she was a baby, just born. Yes. And she has been a part of your team, like boots on the ground, flying with Javi to Honduras, going to do the work that y'all are doing. And it's, you've chosen to homeschool her, and you're choosing to approach her education and upbringing in, I think, a very unique and special way. And because I want to preface that, I think a lot of people, when they have a child, and this isn't terrible, but it's just that their life then turns to that child's world, right?
Right.
And
All of
they'll
their
put
plans
things
change.
on hold, or
Yeah.
they'll maybe like shift gears to make sure that they can give this child 100% of what they think is, good. Like they're trying
Yeah.
to do the right thing for their kid. And they'll put things on hold, where y'all went the complete 180 of that.
Yeah.
And we're like, she's coming with us. Like
Yeah.
she's along for the ride. And so we want to
Yes.
know, why did you do it that way?
Yeah.
How's it going? Any regrets?
And
Any
we-
positives? And Sage, you better
Yeah.
chime in if they start lying.
We want to hear from
She does.
both.
Calls us out.
She will.
As the queen says, some accounts may vary, but
Yeah.
We may need the parents to leave the room for a minute.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, do you want to take that one away?
Yeah, so I think for us, it's exactly what you just described. It was a very intentional decision from day one
Yeah.
that she was coming into our lives.
Yeah.
It was never going to be revolving around any one person. A lot of times certain dynamics lend towards that, where it's like, okay, well, the husband rules the roost and everything goes towards his direction. And if he wants burgers tonight, that's what we're doing. And even in bigger decisions where it's like, this is my house and this is what we're doing. Other times, maybe the wife can do that, or certain families will just revolve around the children, where it's like, we can't make any plans. Vacations have to be to Disney. We can't, and it's like, these are good things. Like you said, these are good things.
Yeah.
These are inherently, okay, like, great, let's go to
Coming
Disney.
from a good place.
Coming
Yeah.
from a really great place
Right.
of like, let's just give them a lot. And so where we wanted to do something different was, we want to give you experience, like world experience. We want to show you different languages. We want to show you different cultures. We want to show you luxury. We want to show you poverty. We want to see everything together.
Yeah.
It wasn't about us, like, well, you're just a part of what we're doing. Along the way, when she started to have a voice, we would ask very directly, is this okay? Can we do this? Do you want to do this? Do you want to be a part of this? There were, even just in the beginning of building this, took a lot of dinners out. It took a lot of meetings. It took a lot of conferences. And I remember just bringing her along. I mean, she'd be on my hip or be on hers and just be like, yo, this is how this meeting goes. Like,
Yeah.
we're going to put her, here. She's quiet. She's very good. She's always been a stellar, just sort of like, okay, I'm here and it's
Yeah.
okay.
Truly. Team player.
And so
Yes.
she just has learned and evolved into this pretty magnificent little person,
Yeah.
where she's very experienced. She's very, she can handle herself in adult situations or in kid situations or in a hospital. We do a touring of the hospital here, and seeing some of the things would be off-putting to most adults.
Yeah.
People who've even lived lives would be off-put by some of the things that we encounter here living in Honduras. And yet she handles it with a lot of grace and with a lot of just poise that most adults would just flake out and be like,
Yeah.
I can't handle this. Like, this is too much for me.
Yeah.
And so I think that lends itself to the daily intentionality that Danielle and I took from day one of just saying, we're involving you in everything.
Yeah.
We're going to involve you. We're taking you to work. She would dress up in her little tiny high heels and her little, sweater. She'd follow Danielle to work, and she'd, do everything that mom is doing and learn that type of work. Then she'd come with me on these trips to Honduras, 4 or 5 times, 6 times a year for a week, away from mom, away from friends, away from all the normal stuff that a 6, 7, 8, 9-year-old kid is supposed to see or typically sees. But we're doing this, and she's mixing concrete for people who live on a dirt floor, and she's digging, helping us dig a water well, and she's helping us teach kids English at the local schools. It's like everything that we did, she did.
Yeah.
And we just brought her along.
And does.
And still does.
Yeah.
And so to us, it was never a question of, well, you have your life, down there and we have our life up here.
Right.
It was like, boom, let's just do all of this together because that's what we want it to be. How we described Danielle and I both being friends. She's our third, the next best friend.
Yeah.
It's like we're all three
Aw.
best friends and we get to just hang out and do good things.
She's like, why didn't you say this when they asked who your dear friend was?
Well, I was gonna
I
say
know.
that we say that a lot to each other. Like, you're my best friend. That's
Yeah.
something that we say pretty often throughout the day to each other because we just feel that way.
Well, and
know?
I feel like it's turned Sage into this amazing, well, I don't know. I think kids are also just born who they are too. Like she's an amazing person. And we were talking about a funny memory that she was staying over for a sleepover with Haley and I. And we were playing a Christmas show outside, like Christmas music. And I said, Stage came with us and I was like, hey, this is just 30 minutes. And then we're going to go and start like watching movies and all this stuff. And she was like, great. And so she went up to the one of the seats for the audience,
like so well behaved,
So
no
well-behaved.
no arguing at all,
No,
just
talking with folks, doing her thing, and we're watching her. And then she comes up to me with her phone, and the alarm has gone off, and she's like, "It's been 30 minutes. Are we ready to start?" And I was like, "Oh my god, you set an alarm!" And I was like, "Yep, let's go. I'm in the middle of a song. Let me finish this one. Let's go." And
Yeah.
it was like. It was so funny because I just don't think a kid would think to do that, which is like, yeah, no problem. 30 minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, see you in 30.
I got to keep these adults accountable.
Yes.
Yes, exactly. Yes, that is so true. But she has been honestly just remarkable and amazing. She took her first international trip when she was 4 to Thailand. And we were building a large aquaponic system there. And that flight is not easy. Like you're in the air for 24 hours. And my mom went with us. My mom was turning 50 during that time. So she was celebrating her birthday there in Thailand and taking the trip with us. And we tease my mom even now. We're like, man, you were such a horrible traveler compared to Sage. Like,
Compared to the 4-year-old.
Yeah. We're like, she was 4 and was fine.
Sage, what do you think about? Do you love being a part of Connect Global and like living in Honduras?
Yes. You can say whatever you want.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
What's your favorite part about living there?
I don't know. It's just different.
Just experiencing new, different stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the sentiment she's expressed with us is that she loves being a part of Connect Global. She definitely sees herself as a team member, and she is. I think it is a challenge to live away from the culture that you're familiar with and accustomed to. So, it's like we tell her, if people say, do you just love living there? And you don't feel like you do, you can tell them no, it's okay. Because there's days where we feel that way, and it's nothing against this country, but it is a different dynamic to go from your country of origin to a new culture. And you just have challenges and things that, you aren't really used to dealing with on a daily basis. And sometimes there's like a perception that it's a simpler life because I don't know, some people just project that, and it's like, it's really complicated actually. Like going to the grocery store here takes a lot more effort than it takes in the United States of America. And, making a bank transaction, paying a bill, a lot of these things cannot be automated. You literally have to go stand in line behind 20 people to get your electric bill paid, different things. So it's like, I wouldn't say it's simpler in that regard. But sometimes people think that because they think, oh, it's slower paced, it must be so much different. And in a lot of ways, there's just more challenges that come with the location. There's, high levels of violence and things like that. And so you see the side effects of that. You feel it in the atmosphere. It's just a very different dynamic at times. And so I think we all appreciate that we get to do this. Like we feel like it's an honor and it's something that we really value and cherish. But there's also days where we're like, we miss Shake Shack. And like a smoothie would be great from Smoothie King. Like,
yeah.
Well, the word that's just been coming across my brain for the past few minutes is resilience. And it's like, I was going to ask Sage, do you feel like them bringing you along for everything since you were a baby has made you like, do you feel like, oh, I feel like maybe this has made me weaker? Or do you feel like this has made you feel like a more strong, capable young woman?
I think more strong, maybe.
Yeah. You're very strong. Very
Yeah,
strong.
because even what you're saying about feeling the hard things, and there are challenges and you don't always love everything. But the reason why Sage was good on a plane at 4 was because from day one, you've been breeding resilience.
Yes.
And the only way that you gain resilience is by doing something like that, by having a variety of experiences, which I think, and we were talking about the word education, and that you haven't actually used the word education that much. You've used experience.
Yeah. Which is the best kind of education.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yep. That's exactly right.
Do people like ever think what you're doing and like how you're doing it with your family? Do you get weird looks about that, or people
Oh,
are like,
yeah.
really? Or
Well, yeah, we had a friend one time tell us that they couldn't wait to see how it turned out. and honestly, kind of like skeptically and like sarcastically. And then my brother has told me that several times, and even just like a week ago mentioned it again and was like, well, just can't wait to see how it all turns out. Like,
I'm like, it's turning out right now.
it's turning
You're seeing
out great. Yeah.
the experiment is happening in real time.
Yes. Yeah.
But no, really, whenever we started Connect Global, that's when we first really downsized our life to make it possible to launch this organization. And so we had moved from a 4-bedroom home on the 9th hole of the golf course to a cabin in the woods that was owned by a church, that was like 585 square feet. It was just 1 bedroom and had no AC in Florida and also no heat. And that was what facilitated our ability to be able to sink everything into building this thing.
Yeah.
And at that time, I remember that my grandfather was really angry that we had chosen that, because he was raised very poor. And he had 10 brothers and sisters, and they lived in a 1-bedroom home, and they did not have, they didn't even have the things that they needed really, much less the things that they wanted.
Right.
And so he worked really hard his entire life to become very successful. And, he created a great life for himself and for my mom and her sister. And, I grew up only ever knowing, good things. I had everything I needed and wanted. That was my life.
Yeah.
And so when we chose to downsize our life and to what looked like going backwards in his mind, that was very frustrating for him, especially because Sage was involved. She was just a baby at the time. And I just know, like, my grandpa and my grandmother, they've always been like my biggest cheerleaders. Anything I did was fine. Like, I used to tell Javi, I could probably tell him I killed someone, and they'd be like, that's great. Like, like, it just always felt that way. Like, it wouldn't really matter what I did. It was great. Except for that.
Yeah.
That was like, this is not great. What in the world are you guys thinking? Like, you can do anything with your life and be anyone, and you're like downsizing your life to live in this cabin with no AC with our great granddaughter. Like, it was not attractive to them. And it's taken years and years and years and years of us being committed to this in every capacity, to where even just in the last, maybe I would say 3 years, I feel like they're like, oh, we get it now. Like, wow, this is amazing what you guys have done. But it's taken all of that, all of those stories and articles, and, here's what we did today. And here's, now we've fed this many people, and we've served these many mothers. And we just took over a school. We just inherited 26 employees and 172 students.
I mean, unbelievable.
And so now I think they see the value in it. But at the time, it was just like, you're going backwards. Like, you're going the opposite direction of where you should be going. And to us, we saw exactly the opposite of that. We're like, no, we're giving ourselves a life that's worth living. You know, it's like, sure, we have the great privilege of having been born in a country that provides every opportunity for you. And so to know that we have that, that's very comforting and it gives you a lot of solace. But to know that there's people out there that don't have that, and that you can somehow be a part of a solution to try and create an opportunity for someone, that's invaluable. And so to us, we didn't look at it as going backwards. Sometimes it felt that way just because literally our cars were less nice over time. Our dwelling was, wasn't as nice over time, because every step of the way we were like, well, how can we cut an expense here? And how can we cut a cost here? And so it just got smaller, and I ended up driving like a really hideous car, and it was just a whole experience. But again, it was for a purpose. Yeah. And it was for the greater good. And to us, that was just something that it's like, you can't really put a price tag on that,
And y'all sound like Mother Teresa right now. And I just want to say, did you ever have moments where in those like day to day where you felt like, oh, what are we doing? Like, why don't we just climb the ladder of success and like have the house we want and the cars we want? Like, do you ever have moments like that?
Yeah, I can remember one in particular. It's when we had already moved into the cabin, and it was literally a log cabin, and there was like cracks and holes between the logs that would have to be filled with like a foam, like it's like a liquid that would turn into foam to, create the, to bring it together so there wouldn't be a crack. And we would do that as often as we could, but there was one situation where, there was obviously some we missed. And we woke up and Sage had like 50 bites, like insect bites covering her body.
Oh no.
And that was a moment, and she was bawling and scratching, and she's tiny, not even 2 years old. And that was a moment where I was like, forget this. Like, this is not okay. I am not okay with this. And, I think we spent like $50 on oatmeal bath supplies and all the stuff, which at the time, $50 was like, we don't have $50. Yeah. So, but we were like, we're going to spend every last penny we have to try and like calm her bites and all these things. But that one was one that was very like, I am not going to sacrifice her for the greater good,
Yeah. Right. So what ended up making you press forward? Like, and maybe frame it in a way, if there is someone out there listening that is putting their rocks in the scale to tip it, and they know that it's their calling, but they're in one of those moments where they're like, forget this is way too hard.
Yeah. Well, I would say just to hang on to it because it's worth it. I don't think we're at the end by any means. I think all these years in, we're still at a launching point, but even to where we are in this part of the story, it feels like, man, all of those sacrifices were worth it. So all of those ski trips that we didn't take to Colorado with friends and family were worth it. And the really ugly Chevy Lumina that I drove to my work when everyone else had, a $25,000 or $30,000 car, it was worth it. And, downsizing from a really nice size, comfortable home on a golf course to the little cabin in the woods where we're getting mosquito bites and insect bites, and, we're boiling water so I can take a hot bath and all those things. Now it feels like it was worth it, because it's evolved into exactly what our dream was. And so I think that a lot of people miss their destiny because they're afraid to go through the challenging things and the hard things, and they give up just before the breaking or the tipping point, Yeah. And so I think that, like, we joke about this with each other, and it's still true today, but it's good that we never feel like we're over it on the same day.
Yeah.
Because there's days where even now I'm like, I am done. Like, I will just fly back to Dallas and make money again, And he's like, no, and then it'll be the reverse. He'll be like, I am over this. This is hard. This is crazy. Like, we had a perfect life. And then I'm like, no, but look at all the people we get to help,
So since you guys you've decided to make your work your life pretty much, and such a work that's so giving, like you're always giving
And like
something of,
demanding of yourself.
yeah. What do you guys do to make sure that you're filling yourselves up, or that you're, paying attention to all the other parts of yourselves, because your work is, it seems like it's the main thing kind of that takes up your time and your life and your attention. But
Yeah.
what else do you do? And what do you do to make sure that you're full?
Abby?
That's a great question. And it's definitely a great concern for anybody who's pursuing something, no matter what it is, because if it's music or art, or if it's teaching, or if it's whatever your true passion is, if you're, lucky enough to realize it and then have the guts to pursue it, then you also have to protect yourself. You have to protect yourself even from that thing that is so life-giving and so joyful and brings you so much happiness. And maybe even, brings other people, those things, but because of what you're doing, you have to still protect you. And so that's one thing that Danielle, I give her a lot of credit for, because it's her directness helps in that way, because she can very directly say, we're working too much. It's hard because all of our work tends to go towards lifting up and accompanying others and doing, life with other people and elevating their life. So it's a good work, but it still commands a lot from us, and it takes a lot from us emotionally and psychologically. And so for her, she can be very direct sometimes, because I am, my mind is in two different places, and strategic and also technical, and also, it's like all these different things. But for her, all she has to do is say, okay, wait a minute. I think we're kind of going down a path of working 6, 7, 9 days a week. And it's like, okay, on some level, we're getting a lot done, but if that productivity wears down because we're wearing down, then we'll actually do worse. We'll do, less work than we could have done if we were healthy. So she does a really great job of taking a step back, letting us, keeping the guardrails around our private, personal time, our life of, just, okay, this is just for us, the three of us. She's very, very intentional about that. She's always done a great job with that. Because to me, we also look at our different personalities, where to me, I'd just as soon be with all the people all the time. Like, it's fine. Like, to me, that gives me energy to just be around people and discussing things. And, even if it's difficult things or difficult work, it's just like, okay, that's great. And Danielle, I recognize and know now that it's like, well, she has to really retract and come into her own space in order to do all of those things. And so for me, it's like we kind of fit together in that way, because in the beginning, for a very short amount of time, we just thought, well, let's just, I want to do everything you want to do, and she would want to do everything I want to do. But immediately we were like, no, that's not the right way to do it. It's like, let's give and take. And sometimes we do what Jack, gives me the energy. Sometimes we'll, recluse ourselves a little bit and protect ourselves. But it's a balance. It's like super just fluid. It's nothing that it's like super hard set, because we're super maximum flexibility, that even sometimes when she said, okay, here's the time that we've notched out, and then something comes up, it doesn't just like, okay, now we're flipping tables over because this was family time. And then on the other side, it's the same with me. If something comes up and it's like, oh, look, we can go here and we can do this and we can get this done, but we've already stated that the time was like, well, that's our day to just do what we're doing. Then I'm like, cool, I'll get to that on Monday, or I'll put that out of the way. And I think when couples or people, associates, work partners get into trouble, is that they don't allow for that flexibility. They're so rigid, whether it's extrovert or introvert, or whatever the differences are, but they just hold so strongly to their side that the tension breaks them. And so what we've learned over the years is that you have to be super flexible. Here we get the awesome backdrop of some palm trees and, different vistas, because we're right on the ocean, and get, to see some of that stuff. And you see in storms, those palm trees really bend. I mean, they're almost to the sand sometimes if you get to see the thunderstorms, but most of the time they won't break. because they've been able to weather those storms year after year after year. The roots of a palm tree are not very deep sometimes, but the flexibility allows them to push back and forth and push against that wind. So when we've had hard times, like she said, there's been times where both of us are just like, man, this is so much and it's so hard and it's a thankless job on certain days.
Yeah.
And, nobody sees the behind the scenes stuff that we're doing. And so it can be very grueling, hard work. And so we just have to come back to each other and say, okay, well, I think we're working too much on this, or we're thinking too much about this, or let's put the screens away and do something else, put a puzzle together, or do something that's just sort of like, takes us out of that moment.
Yeah.
And I think we've been that for each other, all of us, because Sage will do the same thing. She'll just say, hey, look, this enough is enough. Like,
we need
we're
to go to the beach.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
going 100 different directions.
Exactly.
And so sometimes she'll recognize it for
Yeah.
us. And she'll say, oh, well, I think we need a day off, or I think we need this, or I think we need that.
Yeah.
And so to us, that's the true partnership.
Yeah.
Is sometimes I don't see what's right in front of me, but she can recognize it and she can say, okay, you need a break from that, or you need to change gears or shift directions or something like that. And so recognizing in each other, and then trusting each other,
Yeah.
that I'm not trying to turn her into a different person.
Yeah.
She can trust me that, that I'm not trying to just go off on my own direction. So building that trust over the years has also allowed us to be flexible, trust, we can listen to each other. I can hear her advice. She can hear what I'm trying to explain. There's certain things that just flow now because we've built trust and transparency and just giving each other credit over the years that has allowed us to be like, great, I trust you. If you see this, even though I didn't see it, if it was in a blind spot for me, I trust you because we've built that over the years.
So when's the marriage book coming out?
Seriously.
I'm hoping you're transcribing this because I want to make sure that.
Well, can I just
Go
tell
ahead.
you, I got a lump in my throat when you were talking about the palm tree.
Love a good metaphor.
Because it's exactly what you've been explaining about since day one from your story. You guys been whipped around, you've been being flexible, you've had a little, you've had too little, you've had a lot, you've been through storms, but your roots are like they get stronger and stronger and stronger. And your roots aren't planted in anything except they're not planted in anything that can be taken away from you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
So no
It's
matter,
very special.
I'm emotional.
Really? Oh, it is special.
I can't talk. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, I think that a lot of people want to be that way and they want to be flexible, but people are so comfortable with who they are and who they've become. It's hard to give that trust, and y'all are such a beautiful example of trust and flexibility, and it's showing that that's causing your work to be great. You're doing great things because of the team that you guys have, which is amazing. So we're going to get you to stop crying, and we're going to switch to the segment and it's the last segment of the interview, and it's called
The Insight Scoop.
Insight
Nice.
Scoop from
Insight Scoop.
not Inside Scoop,
Insight.
Insight Scoop with Javier, Danielle, and
And
Sage.
Sage. She's quite the sage.
She's
She
a sage
is.
of wisdom.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
So for people who are listening, who are trying to find their specific lane in service, right? Like, they want to be a part of something where they feel like they're also giving. I think it's so important. Michael and I sat down just the other night because both of us have been at different times in our life so much a part of like nonprofits and also just giving to things that we really believe in. And as a married couple in our first year, it's like we want to decide like together, what do we want to give to? What do we want to be a part of?
Right.
And so what is the Insight Scoop, do you think, about helping people find the right organizations for them, the specific lane of service? Like, what do you think? Because it's kind of overwhelming. There's a lot of organizations. Who's legit, who's not? Give us the Insight Scoop.
Well, I think it starts with knowing, what you were personally passionate about. What is that thing that gives you a lump in your throat? what is that thing that makes your heart beat a little faster when someone's talking about it, or when you see a certain image. I think that if you're willing to lean into those things, then you'll kind of find the path that you should take in regards to a life of service. But I think it starts with maybe people's life experience too. You know, there's people that we've had on podcasts that we've done that they, one lady in particular, she's a director for a women's shelter in Dallas, and it's for abused women. And she grew up having experiences seeing different women being abused. And so that's something that became something she was very passionate about and wanted to invest her time in. For me, it was being in Mexico and seeing other children my age and realizing that what they had and what we had was very different, and feeling like I'm not okay with that. Like, why do I have a surplus and they have a deficit? I don't like this. And so I think sometimes if we have life experiences that take us out of our comfort zone, that's really where it starts.
Ooh,
and
that's good.
if you're willing to lean into the uncomfortable, then beautiful things can happen. There's a lot of things that I've done that make me super uncomfortable, even to this day, but I'm always glad that I did at the end, because it's like, if I just stopped doing things beyond my comfort level, I wouldn't do much, you know, just being honest, because I'm not comfortable with a lot of things that are required for this type of life. But I do tend to kind of just lean towards, okay, I'm super uncomfortable, but I'm just going to do it anyways, and let's see what happens. And usually I'm not dead. You know?
That's a good sign.
Yeah, 10 out of 10
Usually,
times. Yeah, 10 out of 10 times I survive,
Yeah.
you know, even though there's been times in the moment where you're like, can I just disappear right now? You know, like, can I just vanish? That would be great. But I think just being willing to lean into things that make you uncomfortable, things that feel like they're bigger than you, things that you feel like, well, I'm not qualified for that. Well, neither was the person that is now until they started, you know.
That's
everyone
right.
has to start somewhere. So you don't have to believe that you have to have every license or certificate or all the book knowledge in the world. But I think if you have a passion for something and you're led by your heart, then yeah, go and get the education, know what you're doing, but also don't get so, like I think you've said before, you don't want to get the like paralysis analysis situation where you're just consumed with trying to get all the information and get it just right and not mess up, to where then you're frozen and you can't make a decision and you can't do anything because,
Well,
you
yeah,
know,
because I think that I mean, this has happened to me before, where you learn about something that really like ruffles your feathers, that you can't believe is happening out in the world, or like really doesn't sit right with you. And then you think, oh my God, that's such a big problem. What could I do? You know what I mean? Like, it feels so
Exactly.
much bigger than you. And people are like, well, and then they just step back from it entirely, because it's like,
Yeah.
what am I going to do? And I like what you said, like, if you're willing to lean into that discomfort
yeah,
and find, even if it's small ways of how you can contribute to helping that change, whether it's your time, money, or whatever.
yeah.
I think that's so good. But we didn't say insight scoop about like your insight about that. You misunderstood. We were
passion,
saying
yeah.
like, what's your favorite
ice cream, like your insight
Oh,
scoop, like which,
nice.
can you give us some insight on your favorite ice cream?
That's top secret information.
Yeah, you guys really got confused by that last question. I don't know
Yeah,
how you
I
missed
know what
that.
happened.
It was clearly about ice
You've
cream.
been really on track this whole time.
No, I only have about 45 minutes, and then after that, it's
Yeah.
just off the rails.
Yeah.
So-
You found our one flaw. We hate ice cream.
Yeah.
So
Get out of here.
And puppies.
Sage,
Her face looked disgusted by you.
It's a joke.
at least it's not puppy ice cream.
Right,
Yes.
exactly.
yes, you got to find the silver lining.
Exactly.
Well, we
No, I
really,
like Cold Stone Creamery. They have my favorite ice cream. The cheesecake flavor, half of that, the gotta love it size is ridiculous, but I
Wow.
love it. And then the other half with the butter pecan with the pecans mixed in.
oh, girls got a combo.
Oh yeah.
Love that. Gotta love a combo.
Yeah. And they
Sage-
don't have that here. So if you guys want to mail us some,
I'll
feel
do
free.
It will not arrive as a solid, but I will.
We can revisit.
Right. Favorite ice cream?
I really like Mint chocolate chip, and I like cookies and cream.
Girl, I knew we were soulmates. Javi?
Javi.
Ice cream. Does gelato count? What is that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Stracciatella.
Of course. He's my fancy one.
Super. Y'all are this
Ice
weird
cream.
combination of fancy and get your hands dirty.
Exactly.
You guys be the judge. Who is who?
Well,
I can't.
I just really love this interview because I think y'all are amazing. And I think what you're doing is obviously super important and amazing work. But I also think like how you function is so beautiful and it's inspiring. And I think it's just eye-opening to see people who are doing things a different way too. And that it works and that it doesn't, we don't all have to do exactly what the traditional way of doing everything is all the time. You can go and try something different if it's, you're willing to go through the hard things for it, like you guys have.
Yeah.
So we hope that this interview filled your cup a little.
It was great. We
filled
missed
mine.
you guys so much.
I know we miss you and you bring so much
The
joy to us. So
Mendozas,
we
Sage,
got to get
Javier,
together
and
soon.
Danielle.
Yes.
Team.
I mean, really, and it's just their resilience. I love it. It was something I wasn't really expecting to even talk about.
Will you just say, because I know you broke down a little bit, like you teared up, but say what was so beautiful about that too, because it's really sweet.
Well, it was kind of like a ha-ah moment because him saying that about the palm tree and that it goes through so much, but the roots just keep it, that the roots are strong so it just withstands stuff. And then realizing that they've made their root system in something that can't be taken away from them is what really kind of made me emotional because they are each other's root system.
Yeah, and the flexibility he was talking about, and that they can go anywhere and move anywhere.
There's nothing, no one can touch them.
It's
know what I
beautiful.
mean? Like they can go through all kinds of hard stuff, but their joy and their ultimate comfort is rooted down into something that can't be taken from them. And I think that that's very wise and it's something we could all learn.
And if you guys want to know more about Connect Global and what they're doing, if you want to give to it or be a part of it in any way, they are on social media. They have their own website. Everything is at Connect Global.
And we'll put it all in the show notes too.
Yeah, so thank you guys for listening to this. We hope more than anything that this inspired you in some way. It could be any small way, and that you share it with a dear friend, because these types of things are best talked out with a dear friend, right? We're all on this journey becoming more of who we are together, and that's through these great conversations. So have a great week, and until next time, we're going to do our pledge, because gosh, I always forget. Well, okay.
Let's do it.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States in America, and where the republic is where we stand, one friendship, under God, indivisible, liberty, and justice for all. I feel like doing a big old salute and like a bird call for the brown birds, like on Friends. I think of Ross,
Girl Scouts.
on the brown birds, where he's like doing the weird. I want to have a weird thing like that for us. We're
gonna work on that.
We're a new version of Girl Scouts.
Yeah, grown-up Girl Scouts.
We're women scouts.
Yeah.
We scout out women.
G-U.
Nothing is sounding good.
I was trying to do the acronym for grown-up Girl Scout. I
It's
thought
not
that could
good.
be
We
good.
need to
It's
drop
Gugs.
it. So until next time, Gugs, we'll see. Have a great week.